Tavi. I'll never forget the first time I saw her. She had a smile that reached beyond her lips to include the warmth in her lilac eyes. Her mane and coat may have seemed plain to other common pony rabble, but for me, they were a symbol of strength. The gods must have seen the true color of her soul and tried to subdue her beauty, but only I saw the truth. There was something enchanting about the way her mane swept over her back, caressing her fur as she moved with her music. Her brightness didn't come from her hue, but from within, and no pony could extinguish it. Her movements were elegant, radiant. She didn't need the instrument within her grasp to control the hearts of those blessed enough to even witness her mastery of music. Her lyrical concerto wove expert tales of heroes and victories long past, but each tale was instilled with meaning and depth so that the masses were edified. To hear her was to witness a siren's serenade. An unspeakable calm and joy was sure to wash over you with every word. The more I lingered around her, the harder it was to keep away. Like a moth to a flame, I was consumed by her essence. Unfortunately, there was also many others who felt the same. But I was, in fact, the luckiest mare who ever lived. Natavia the Bard, the only pony I ever truly loved. Acquiring her, though, was not a simple task. Plenty of the herd offered her riches and prestige, but the life I offered Natavia was perfection. Marriage to a noble sun mage. This implied a certain air of respect and dignity, the likes of which no other unicorn could boast. We were tasked with raising the sun in the sky every morning to begin a day anew. Exalted and revered, we were placed on pedestals because our magic kept life sustained. It was no easy feat to organize and interweave powerful magics from 7 different unicorns into one focused spell. It was a task afforded to me, Vyanna, the Mage Supreme. By all accounts, my life was the one most coveted, but praise and titles couldn't warm an empty bed. Tavi was the piece of my life that was most precious. I would burn what I had earned to the ground if it meant her uninterrupted happiness. Luckily, for a time, that wasn't necessary. The change happened subtly. At first, it manifested as a hoarse stutter that interrupted an otherwise perfect melody. Then the dryness ached in her throat, causing coughing that would break her concentration, creating a sour note. I tried to dissuade her panic by noting that the universe must be bitter at her ability and was trying to appease some unknown god by making her more mortal. But humor and deflection can't stave off a darker reality. As these moments grew in frequency, so did our worry. A healer offered us nothing but deep condolences and a diagnosis: consumption. Such an illness was so aptly named, as the disease would consume the body until there was nothing left but a hollowed-out husk. I didn't think I would need to burn my world for her, as I once mused, but I would not fail her in the hour she needed me most. I turned away from my position of power and left the group of magi to pursue a far nobler magical endeavor: defy death for the sake of love. For hours, days, and weeks, I pored over magic tomes and parchments. I exhausted all of my resources and had no other recourse but to delve into a necessary, yet often forgotten and judged school of magic: blood magic. Tavi was barely clinging to life when I finally crafted the spell that I believed would save us. I named it Soul Bonding. With a singular incantation, I could intertwine her fate with mine. It would keep her safe in this mortal coil in perpetuity, proving that love really can conquer all. If there's one wisdom I've learned from delving into this magic, it's that darkness, loves to lie. My naivety and trust led me to cast a spell for which I was woefully unprepared. The moment my spell concluded, something consumed me. An evil only described as a slithering sharp cold filled my veins with every pump of blood from my heart. Unseen tendrils rooted me to the ground, keeping me stationary for a metamorphosis I hadn't wanted. Pain came slowly. A shiver of knives ran up my spine as each inch of flesh was ravaged by its grasp, silent but excruciating. I felt something from within me being forcibly sliced away. It was slow and deliberate, but methodical and all-encompassing. I don't remember the exact moment that I realized I had lost all sensation. The pain echoed beyond the point where I existed as I was. My thoughts unraveled. My very existence wavered between consciousness and nothing. There was only one constant truth. Tavi. This shouldn't have happened. She should have been with me, even if things had not gone as I had planned. How long was I working on that spell? Did I even check on her? Was she even still alive when I cast it? How much of my obsession consumed me to our detriment? This unknown was hell. There appeared to be no escape, and I suppose that was only fitting, considering it appeared that I had failed her. Us. No. With what precious consciousness I had left, I engraved her name inside me. I refused to let this be our fate. I would writhe and scream and defy heaven and earth in this hell to find my way back to you again. The sound of a piercing cry within the darkness. A slash of a blade. A thud of a body on the ground, unseen and unfelt. These sounds were real. The first tangible piece of reality I'd encountered since... Wait, how long had it been? Desperate, I searched in the void until I found a faint light off in the distance. I willed myself forward without the familiar momentum of ground beneath hooves. The light was angelic and filled the emptiness that was me with something real. Hope. During my pursuit, I felt it shift. I watched the light tremble and stutter until it resembled that of a pony. However, once it found its shape, I could feel the light fade away from me. I tried to scream for it to stay, to save me from this purgatory from where I had been banished. But how can anything answer a silent scream? My movements turned frenzied. I refused to lose this chance. I needed this light. Without it, I was sure it would be the end of me. When, at last, I reached the beautiful light, my mere presence thrusted it backwards into a tear in reality I had not seen. I latched on, the light dragging me from the darkness like a parasite that sought an unwilling host for freedom. Sensation whisked forward, and I really felt again. Pain, fear, confusion, joy, sadness, relief, anger, excitement, all whirling with intensity. I wanted to scream as an act of finally releasing what had been dormant for so long. I knew what it felt like to open my mouth and produce a sound, but in me, there was no mouth, no voice, therefore, no outcry. Sight seemed to be the only sense which I could rely on as the world came back into view. Even that felt foreign and labored, as there were no eyes to shift from side to side to absorb what I was seeing. But I saw. It was dark in this world, but not devoid of light like mine was. Soft illumination emanated from the moon and stars overhead, and strange tall lamps lit with magical auras. All around me was an expansive garden of perfectly kept flora, arranged in elegance around winding cobblestone pathways. Most notably, I saw a castle made of bricks painted shades of purples and whites, and accentuated with turrets fashioned with gold. Its grandiose size made the spires pierce the very heavens with their might and majesty. I tried again to exclaim my shock and awe, but could make no motion or sound. It was a terrifying reminder of my non-existence within this reality. My nothingness was no longer trapped in a world of the same, but that didn't make it any more bearable. That was until I saw her. Tavi. My Tavi. She was laying on the wet cobblestone street, eyes wide and wild with her hooves clutched in disbelief to her chest. She appeared to be frantically scanning the fur for a wound that had presumably caused the pool of blood around her. We both watched in disbelief as that very blood seeped backwards into the wound unseen, until nothing but a frightened, unharmed mare remained. The more I concentrated on Tavi, the more my senses were honed. I could feel her. She existed for me, and the rush of sensation that followed overwhelmed me. I could hear her labored breath and pounding heart. I could smell her scent, one that I could identify through space and time. I could see her deep-set eyes, though they seemed a darker hue than I remembered. I could taste the air between us, copper and lilac. I could feel the warmth expanding without perimeters or logic. Details may have changed, but she was my Tavi. Of that I was sure. Tavi stared up in my direction, and her breath caught in her throat. If I had a heart, it too would have skipped a beat at the realization that she wasn't looking through me, but at me. She shifted and opened her mouth to say something, but when some pony else approached, she quieted the words in her throat. A stallion approached with urgency. He asked Tavi if she was all right, but the name on his lips was not the correct one. Octavia? No, I was certain this was my beloved Natavia. She responded softly, still racked with shock. She identified with the name he'd said without question. He didn't seem to listen to the words she spoke, almost as if he assumed that whatever her answer was, it would be an affirmative one. At the very least, I expected an extended hoof to help her regain her balance, even if the cretin was only feigning interest. He couldn't even muster that much courtesy for a mare clearly in distress. Instead, he mumbled something about wanting to avoid mud that wasn't present, and turned tail to retreat like the coward he was. My disbelief melted into anger, hot and all-consuming. Once again, I moved, that strange fluid motion that defied explanation. I was near him, surrounding him, and existing within him. The ground beneath his hooves started to tremble. Stones that had been sedentary for centuries clattered against one another, cracking and fraying, as red light pierced upwards from below. The light engulfed, demolishing stone in its wake as it etched a circle into the ground around us, patterns with symbols. I recalled seeing this particular symbol in a book of spells I referenced for my soul bond, the pentagram. The stallion's body writhed and twisted until pieces of him tore away from his flesh. Was that my fate eons ago? Just what exactly had I done? Organs, bones, muscle, and finally fur attached themselves to what I could only describe was my essence. Or at least, that's what it appeared to be. I, being a mare at birth, only required some of what this stallion had to offer. I felt disdain for the pieces that made him a stallion, but also for the pretentious gold mane and tail, the unremarkable cutie mark, the predictably boring sky blue eyes, and the vocal cords that emanated a haughty, grating tone. Those parts were inferior. My essence knew that. His initial scream was short-lived, but the wail that followed felt different. There was no sound, no utterance, but I felt it. I could feel him within me, only in me. This restless, writhing worm was alive in an unreachable space. A new space. I thought I would be repulsed. Instead I felt rejuvenated, revitalized even. Mere moments ago, I was with him, and now I was in control. Tavi spoke softly again, and I turned to face her. This time, I felt the sensation of the turn. I glanced down at myself and realized a body had formed. A perfectly acceptable mare's body, with a frame akin to the one I'd lost. Flesh, bone, fur. I could feel the ground under my hooves again, but even from within this mortal coil, I could sense it too had faults and flaws. Don't ask me how I knew this liver needed to be replaced. Still, even through bewilderment, I felt my new lips curl from the sense of irony. Was it fate or circumstance that this stallion ended up being the same color as my original coat? Without thinking, I offered my hoof to Tavi, the same hoof that should have been offered to begin with. She didn't take it though, not at first. She was still strewn about the ground in a state of upheaval from the struggle I hadn't seen. I saw confusion on her face, but the terror in her eyes wounded me. I turned away in shame, attempting to recoil my hoof, but she surprised me by suddenly taking it. It startled me, and I was now standing face to face with her. I expected fear, droves of it for what she had just experienced and for what she was staring at now. I had the shape of a pony, but I wasn't sure how I appeared in that moment to her, missing such vital pieces. Instead, she studied me for a long stretch of time. Her hoof ran over the fur of my cheek, and I shivered, delighting in the sensation of touch. She didn't run. She didn't scream. She didn't even shy away. Her touch was gentle and deliberate. She wanted to feel me. Finally, she asked me who I was. Not what, but who. To her, I was a pony, despite everything that had just occurred. Knowing that I had no voice to respond, I dipped a portion of my new hoof in the bloodied remains of the stallion to write my name on the disturbed cobblestone. However, I only finished the V when more ponies were heard approaching. I could tell by the clank of armor and the carefully militant gait of their trot that these were guards, that old familiar sound of order. Usually, I would welcome their presence, but now it filled me with fear. The viscera on the ground would only paint me as guilty. I didn't know how I had done this, and if I had the strength or magic to do it again. Could I even do this to more than one pony at a time? Tavi must have sensed my dismay, and with a quick thought, she shoved me out of sight. I stumbled through a bush. The sensation of twigs and leaves against my coat ignited a prickly discomfort. I shook the brambles free and glanced down at my fresh white coat. Pure, untainted, and beautiful. But it offered no camouflage whatsoever. I stayed perfectly still. Tavi cried out to the guards as if she were mortally wounded. She spoke frantically, flailing her hooves like mad, and pointing at the dagger that I'd failed to notice until now. With rushed words, she wove a fictitious tale of a mugging and a masked assailant wielding a weapon. The story she was telling was her own, but with this Prince Blueblood in place as the victim. I made a mental note of the description. This vile pony who set forth these events would soon meet a fate far more gruesome than the one she had almost suffered. Revenge is a very necessary vessel. However, to confused guards, a thief who had reduced a pony to the state that I had left that stallion seemed a little far-fetched in concept. But still, this was my Tavi. And even within the unfamiliarity, no pony could weave a more convincing tale than she. In this, or any other, lifetime. When their confidence of her account weakened, she asserted herself with the title she held in the castle nearby. Musician to the princess. My chest swelled. Musician. Bard. The words may have changed, but the core talent remained the same. With the mentioning of this unnamed monarch, the guard straightened with recognition. Tavi pointed in the direction opposite of where I was hiding, outcrying about the murderous thief, and they raced onward. Once the clatter of suits and hooves could no longer be heard, the bushes began to rustle, and soon Tavi emerged from them. Hesitancy was at the forefront as she approached, cautious but curious. She smiled nervously, but that familiar affection still lingered behind all the confusing emotions that whirled within her. I longed for her, that ache. Before I could react, I felt a tug. She pulled me along the broken cobblestone, mumbling the word Canterlot. I didn't recognize the word, but even so, I obliged. Our silent walk echoed a long-forgotten peace inside me that I only shared with Natavia. Tavi, a single interwoven soul of my beloved wife and my forever. I knew from the start that I would never truly be worthy of her love, so I would move mountains to earn it. This new body, this new world, it was the second chance to live the life I had promised with her. I am ready to shed my old existence and begin anew, not as Vyanna, the Sun Mage, but as a new pony entirely. I had always lamented never giving myself the opportunity to study music like Tavi. It is only fitting for a pair of conjoined souls to practice the same craft. Our life would be our symphony. I am her muse, and she is mine. I'm still unsure of what to call myself, or how many other lives must burn before I'm whole. But I am no longer afraid of that prospect. I embrace what I've become, a malignant spirit who defied death through love, all because of her. Octavia the cellist, the only pony I have ever and will ever love.